at the SA Innovation Summit. I know that there are multiple sessions that are happening concurrently. So glad to have you folks here. We are going to talk about how Startup Reseau as a company, we enable global market access. Before we get into some of the launches that we're doing or some of the initiatives that we are announcing at the SA Innovation Summit, I'd just like to play a very quick pitch deck, which gives you a little bit of understanding and a bit of insight into who we are as Startup Reseau and what is the work that we do. So let me quickly take you through a few slides that will give you an understanding of our business. We can keep it interactive because I see that the number of people are fairly less, and we can have it as a discussion or a dialogue. If you have questions about how to take your business global, what are the things that you can do to get your business right in international markets, I'll be more than happy to take that. And I'll plug in what we do at Startup Reseau and how that can kind of benefit some of the work that you do. So let me quickly share my screen. Jagruti, if you can enable screen sharing for me, I'll be able to play the deck.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Can you share now?
I can. Thank you. So yeah, so Startup Reseau as a company. So Startup Reseau, two words which very clearly articulate who we are and what we do. So the first word startup, which focuses or showcases that we work with startups, and the second word Reseau, which is a French word meaning network. It is the network that we bring to startups that we work with. Uh, Jagruti, you need to keep an eye on people who are entering the waiting room so that you can allow them to enter. So our business is built on the founding pillar of startups first. Everything that we do, startups or entrepreneurs are at the core of it. And our business is built around four verticals or four pillars. The first one being enterprise. So we work with large corporates or large enterprises across different parts of the world. And that is a connection or a network that we bring to startups that we work with. The second one is capital. Startups are always looking at access to funding and to scale up their business, and they require investors of different shapes and sizes. And that is another network that we open up to startups that we work with. The third part of our business is capital, markets. We work very closely with governments, economic development agencies, trade bodies, and so on and so forth, and enable international market access or geographic reach expansion to startups that we engage with. And the last part of our business is services or advisory, under which we operate our own brand of boot camps, startup accelerators, conference properties. We do proprietary knowledge report and research with some of the partners that we work with, and events. So different things that we do under advisory or services. Our mission and vision is to be an ecosystem builder in emerging economies. And that's one of the primary reasons why we reached out to the SA Innovation Summit, because we identify with Africa as a continent as the next big thing as far as technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship goes. And probably if you were to move from east to west, if you were to look at China, India, probably the next big wave of innovation and entrepreneurship is going to be coming out of the 53 nations of the African continent. And we have clearly identified regions in East, South, West, and Central Africa where we want to be and we want to operate our programs so that we can work very closely with African entrepreneurs and open up the global network that we bring under Startup Reseau. Our vision is to empower 10,000 startups over the next decade and work with probably 100 corporates or 100 enterprises. And Africa is very critical to this journey or this vision that we have identified as an organization. I'll move on to the next slide. So like I said, the four verticals or four pillars, and this is where I would think that anyone and everyone who is an entrepreneur, who is a startup, would want some kind of an access or access to the Reseau or the network that we bring. So when I say enterprise, we work with large companies which are constantly looking at technology, innovation, they're looking at ideas, they're looking at thinkers, and we open up that network for them, or we open up that opportunity for them by creating or co-creating accelerators, innovation labs, innovation programs, and so on and so forth, so that corporates get access to bright folks who are building enterprises of the future, or developing technology which is going to disrupt the markets in different industries. The second one is capital. We ourselves are in the process of setting up an early stage venture fund, a $10 million fund, to invest in B2B or enterprise software startups. At the same time, we also have built a network of investors who are constantly scoping and scouting emerging technology companies that they want to invest in. And this is a network that we open up for startups that we engage with. The third one is markets, which I spoke about. So increasingly, governments are focusing on technology companies which can not only improve or bring about economic development, but also they can create jobs of the future. So if you look at emerging economies, startups and entrepreneurs have a very important role to play in not only economic development or the nation building, but creating jobs locally is something that startups and entrepreneurs are doing prima facie. And for that, the governments are supporting them. And at the same time, governments are also encouraging startups or entrepreneurs from other markets to expand into different regions, because it is going to bring about global economic development. So this is something that we kind of bring to companies that we work with, or startups that we work with, by opening up market access to new regions or new geographies that they want to engage in or enter into. And the last part of our business is services. So like I said, we operate very dedicated boot camps and market access programs. So tomorrow, during the summit itself, we are going to announce an Africa to the World global immersion program, which is basically about identifying top 10 African startups which are looking at accessing global markets, and running a week-long bootcamp program. We are doing this with the organizers of the SA Innovation Summit, and more details will be kind of rolled out when we address an audience tomorrow. At the same time, we also operate several interesting conference and events properties, which I will speak about shortly. So this is the global network that we bring in. We operate across 10 countries, and this network is on the rise or on the increase. 23 strategic partners that we have across different global markets, and an access to more than a network of 30,000 technology startups is what we bring. So on the left hand side, you see some of the countries that we have listed out. And in Africa in particular, we are dealing with a few partners. We are looking at building out something strong and strategic with Nest, which is operating in 5 countries in Africa. But apart from that, we are in close talks in doing stuff with folks in Tanzania. So me myself, I have lived in Tanzania for about 4.5 years. I worked on World Bank projects and African Development Bank projects, so I'm fairly kind of close to what the East African market is like. But that is some time back. I lived there from 2004 until 2008. But it's so Africa is not something very new for me as a region. I'm fairly close to it. So that's again one more reason why, as a company, we are aligned to or interested in doing some work in Africa. I'll move on to the next few slides. So I'll just jump a few and I'll come to this one. So we work with some extremely large global organizations for whom we run corporate accelerators and corporate innovation labs. So this is a network that we have built over a few years, because a lot of these companies, as big as they are, and many of them being global organizations like Barclays, Citibank, if you look at maybe Shell Foundation, if you look at DP World, Sodexo, Abbott, Vodafone, all of these companies are fairly large global organizations. And these companies are constantly looking for technology innovation. They're looking at entrepreneurs who are building companies of the future. And this is an access or a network that we have been able to build over the years. And when we work with entrepreneurs like yourself, this is the kind of corporate access or corporate exposure we are able to bring to companies like yourself, which will allow you to kind of grow your business significantly fast. I'd also like to, I'll just jump a few slides because I want to kind of get to a point where I'm talking about some of the things that we want to do very specific to the global immersion program. Um, so coming to why there is a need for global market access or global immersion programs, I think companies are constantly now building not just for a local market, but from day one, they're looking at addressing or accessing different markets of different sizes. But at the same time, there are kind of need gaps, or there are kind of opportunity gaps that exist, and they need access, or they need help of local industry experts and mentors who can help them understand or customize their business to local markets. they need access to professional services. They need access to customers who are going to buy from them and pay for it. They require access to the network of enterprise partners. They require access to investors, and they require access to building a network which will help them in growing and scaling their business in a domestic in a new international market outside of what their domestic access till that point is. We have been successful in creating or rolling out market access programs with countries like Canada, Vietnam, Denmark, UK, Australia, and this is something that we have been doing for the last few years, where we have understood that when companies are looking at accessing new markets, what are the things that they look for. So even if a company is a well-established company in their local market, when they're looking at getting into a new region or a new geography, they require very specific kind of support, which might be very similar to day zero of their startup journey. So they're basically a demographic startup or a regional startup. And like I said, it might be access to experts and mentors, access to customers, investors. It is almost like starting or restarting the journey, even if you're an established company. So this is something that we try to bridge by creating global immersion programs. And like I said, I'll shortly speak about what exactly we want to launch and what is the work that we want to bring to companies like yourself. We also have some strong global kind of partnerships with organizations like VML, which is a leading global agency and a part of the WPP group. Uh, Organizations like Nova Ventures, which is headquartered in Barcelona in Spain, and they do very similar work to ours, but they largely focus on the EU region as a market, and they work with large corporates and governments in helping them understand and identify their innovation requirements and fulfilling those needs. We focus on very specific gender inclusion programs. So currently we are operating a 13-week long gender inclusion program called GrowthX V Sprint, focusing purely on women entrepreneurs and capacity building of women entrepreneurs. We are lucky to have 3 entrepreneurs from Africa who got selected for the program. We are having a demo day happening on the 1st of October. But this is a program that will continue to build, because capacity building of women entrepreneurs is pretty much on the rise as far as governments and corporates go. And there's a lot of focus on capacity building of women entrepreneurs as leaders, women entrepreneurs building scalable businesses. So this is something that we'll continue to focus on, and if things go well, maybe we will launch a very specific GrowthX edition focusing on Africa as a market. We also work with student entrepreneurs. So I saw that there are a few people who represent or work with universities and academic institutions. Again, this is a very much an area of strong requirement, because if you look at the youth, particularly in the age group of say 13 to 21, I mean, people who are in their high schools or doing their probably O levels or A levels, these are the folks who are probably going to create businesses in the coming decade and beyond. And you need to kind of counsel them, you need to kind of work closely with them and help them build businesses for the long run. So we run programs with academic institutions as well. And if there's anyone wanting to talk about it, more than happy to address. So these are some of the events and conference properties that we own, focusing on AI, focusing on tech, on fintech. So very specific thematic areas in which we run events and conference properties. So I will stop this slide right here, and let me go to the global immersion program piece that I spoke about. Just give me a moment. Oops. Yeah. So the global immersion, so I'm not sharing a screen. I'm just going to talk. If anyone has questions, they can keep posting it on the chat window that we have. And probably once I'm done with my talking, I can go to very specific questions that you asked, or some of the things that you want me to address. So the global immersion program is a market access program which is focusing or going to focus on emerging technology companies or startups from Africa which want to take their business global. The reason why we are doing that is because I'm sure that there are a lot of high potential technology companies from the continent uh, which want to get a know-how of what the global markets are like, what is the kind of opportunity for them, and kind of explore opportunities to get into newer markets. So one of the things that we are planning to do immediately after the SA Innovation Summit is to run a week-long bootcamp program, which will talk about the different different things as far as global markets go, and that's why we are calling it as an immersion boot camp, rather than an accelerator, which we will launch in the subsequent months, and which will be more in depth and very focused to help companies scale. Whereas this bootcamp program is more about talking of the different opportunities that exist for African startups in other parts of the world. So first and foremost, we would kind of do an overview of the startup ecosystem in different geographies, and we have selected a handful of them. So one of them being North America, the other one being EU, the third one is India as a market, and the fourth one is ASEAN as a region. So on each of the days, we'll be picking up one particular region and doing a deep dive on what the local startup ecosystem in that region is like, so that you get an understanding of the kind of opportunities that exist in each of those markets, and you can then decide if there is a market which is interesting enough for you to kind of pursue, to go to the next level. The second thing that we would be focusing on is what does it take for an immigrant entrepreneur or a foreign entrepreneur to do business in that region. So this would mean running a session to understand what the local business environment is like from a legal, accounting, and a policy perspective, so that you understand that before you kind of decide upon selecting a market, if there are certain things that you need to know well enough, you're prepared for getting into that market. The third one is kind of bringing in the government from that region, so that you can get a better understanding of what are the government policies and initiatives in each of these regions, and are there bilateral programs that your country has with that particular region which you can kind of tap into, whether it is for R&D, whether it is for product development, whether it is for partnerships and collaboration, or just bidding for tenders and those kind of opportunities. The fourth thing that we would focus on is a founder speak. So founders or entrepreneurs can learn best from fellow founders and entrepreneurs. So if you have an entrepreneur who is not a local, and despite that has become successful in a particular market, learning from him or her, how long did it take them to kind of achieve success? What are the things that they needed to do right from a cultural and business standpoint, which allowed them to integrate with that particular region? So this is something that would be the focus of that particular session. The fifth one is engaging with incubators and accelerators in the local market. So this would mean doing one-on-one sessions with two or three leading incubators from each of the regions that I spoke about, so that it is a kind of a foot in the door for you in that market through that incubator or accelerator once you get through their process or selection criteria. Because when you get into an incubator or an accelerator, it automatically opens up the doors for access to mentors, partners, customers, investors, and other strategic stakeholders. So it is important to kind of engage with incubators and accelerators in the region. And the last one is enabling contacts with corporates and investors. Investors, obviously, to put money in your company, which allows you to build and scale fast. And corporates, obviously, once you have money in the bank and you have built a team and you have a product, you want to go after customers and you want to sell. So getting those corporate connects, which will allow you to kind of sell better and start making revenue from that local market. So the global immersion program, like I said, is something that we're going to announce tomorrow, and we'll kind of go through further details about what the program entails. Once the summit is over, we'll actually be doing a joint announcement or a joint launch with our partners who host the SA Innovation Summit, and that will kind of give us access into startups which have applied to the SA Innovation Summit or are partnering at the SA Innovation Summit or exhibiting, and you could apply into the program. And we'll then kind of go through a selection process and handpick maybe 10 companies to begin with, and we'll run a program with them for a week, and depending on the success of the program or outcomes of the program, we'll then decide upon the next course of action, whether we want to run an accelerator program which is maybe 3 months or 4 months, or probably run an ongoing program, so that we can open up the doors of global markets through Startup Reseau for entrepreneurs from different parts of Africa. So with that, I'll stop my talk, and I'm happy to kind of take questions from any one of you who's here, and it can be very specific to your business, or maybe even kind of touching upon some of the points that I spoke about, and I'll be happy to kind of take those questions. So it is open floor now, and people can ask questions. Thank you. either you can post your questions in the chat window, or maybe you can just raise your hand or something, and my colleague Jagruti will give you access to speak, and we could have the dialogue. Hello, if people have questions, I'm happy to take them. Or maybe what I'll do is on the chat window, I'll put my email address. And if anyone wants to write to me or write to us, feel free to kind of drop a message, and we'll be happy to take that. So I've put my email address on the chat window. Feel free to, yeah. So I think someone has put a question. Is your presentation available to share? Absolutely. You can share your email address with me or my colleague Jagruti, and we'll ensure that the slide is the presentation is shared with you. So Jagruti, if you can just make a note, Nonseba, if I got the name right, has asked for a deck. So we need to send it across to him or her. Anyone else? If you have questions, please don't hesitate. I mean, you can ask whatever you want to ask. We all are entrepreneurs. We all are startups. Everything is fair. There is no right question or wrong question. I mean, the fact that you've attended means that there would be some interest. So happy to take those questions. Yes, I think we are recording the session, so the video will be made available as well. Whoever wants access to the deck or the video, please send across your email address, and we'll share the link or the deck with you. Sure, we'll send the video across. Come on, guys. If you guys are founders, if you're entrepreneurs, you should have some questions. Never shy away from asking a question. We'll hang around for maybe 2 more minutes, and then we'll wrap up the session. So if you have anything to ask, please feel free. I'm around, happy to take your question. I've also put in my email address, so you can send in a question if you want. Sure, Sibogiseni, we'll send across the deck to you as well. All right, we'll just wrap up the session. Thanks everyone for attending. Whoever has shared their email addresses, we'll ensure that we send across the deck and a link to the recording of the video. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.